The 2026 FIFA World Cup was always going to be America's tournament. That was the plan. That was the promise. The United States would put on the greatest show football has ever seen, and the world would finally accept that America and this sport belong together. But something is happening right now that nobody in U.S. soccer predicted. Canada and Mexico aren't just co-hosting the 2026 World Cup, they're stealing it. And the United States, with more matches than any nation has ever hosted in a single tournament, is somehow the one being left behind. On June 11th, 2026, the World Cup kicks off. Not in Los Angeles, not in New York, not in Dallas or Atlanta or any of the 11 American host cities. It kicks off in Mexico City at the Estadio Azteca, newly renovated, 87,523 fans roaring and carrying more football history in its walls than any other stadium on earth. The same ground that hosted the 1970 final, the same turf where Maradona produced the hand of God and the goal of the century against England in 1986, the same stadium that will now host a World Cup opening match for the third time, a record no other venue in history can claim. No other stadium in the world has ever done that, and the United States will be watching from home. Then June 12th arrives. Canada opens their campaign at BMO Field in Toronto, and this is the first men's World Cup match ever played on Canadian soil. Ever. The entire country has been waiting for this. The streets around the exhibition place will be unrecognizable. The fan festival at Fort York is going to be overflowing by noon. Over 50% of Toronto's residents were born outside Canada, meaning almost every team in the tournament will have fans in that city, cheering like it's a home game. The atmosphere on June 12th in Toronto is going to be something special, something genuinely historic. And then, later that same day, the United States plays Paraguay at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, with nearly 30,000 seats still empty. That is where things stand right now, and the contrast could not be more embarrassing. Let's go back to the beginning and understand exactly how this happened. When the United States, Canada, and Mexico won the right to host the 2026 World Cup, the original vision was called United 2026. 3 nations, 1 tournament, a celebration of North American football. The bid talked about the power of unity. 3 countries, 3 football cultures working together. It was a beautiful concept. But as the years went by and the format took shape, the match allocation shifted dramatically in the United States' favor. By the time everything was finalized, the United States had secured 78 of the 104 tournament matches. Canada and Mexico were each handed 13. Every quarterfinal, every semifinal, the third-place playoff, and the final itself, all of it in the United States. America was going to be the main event. Canada and Mexico were going to be the opening acts. Except, nobody asked the Azteca what it thought about being an opening act. When FIFA announced that Mexico would host the very first match of the tournament, something quietly but permanently shifted. The 2026 World Cup doesn't begin in America. It begins in Mexico, in altitude, in noise, in a stadium full of nearly 90,000 fans who don't need to be taught how to love football. They were born into it. Mexican football culture isn't something you explain, it's something you feel. And the world is going to feel it on June 11th before a single ball is kicked in the United States. Mexico isn't just getting the opener either. El Tri are in Group A, playing their group stage matches on home soil. If they top that group, they could host their round of 32 match at the Azteca too, potentially 5 home matches, 5 times with nearly 90,000 of their home fans behind them. That kind of home advantage is extraordinary. It's the kind of atmosphere that makes opponents nervous before they've even done their warm-up. Ask any visiting team that has ever played at the Azteca on a night when Mexico needed the result. They'll tell you there is nothing else in football quite like it. Now look at Canada. BMO Field, temporarily renamed Toronto Stadium for the tournament, has been expanded to 45,736 seats and completely upgraded with 4 massive LED screens, a new rooftop patio, AI-powered food kiosks, and premium infrastructure. The city has invested over $150 million into the venue, and on June 12th, it hosts the most significant sporting event in Canadian football history. Not just the most significant match, the most significant event. Full stop. Canada qualified for this tournament on merit. Their men's team earned their place. Stars like Alphonso Davis and Jonathan David are going to be playing in front of their own country for the first time at a World Cup. The emotional weight of that moment for Canadian fans who have waited their entire lives for this is enormous. That crowd is going to be electric in a way that's completely different from a neutral atmosphere. It's going to be personal, and that emotion is going to transmit directly to every screen watching around the world. Toronto is also offering something that the U.S. host cities simply cannot match right now. You can attend the World Cup match in Toronto without worrying about a U.S. visa. For the millions of international fans who have been locked out of the U.S. portion of the tournament, whether because of travel bans, immigration concerns, or the $15,000 visa bond that fans from 50 countries now face, Canada is the answer. Toronto has created an entire international fan experience built around accessibility. No U.S. visa required, just the Canadian ETA. Come watch Germany play in the afternoon, walk to the fan festival at Fort York in the evening, eat your way through one of the most diverse food scenes in the world. That pitch is resonating, and it's making Toronto look like the most welcoming host city in the tournament. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, the USA versus Paraguay match is stuck at around 40,000 tickets sold for a stadium that holds nearly 70,000. And it gets worse when you compare those numbers to what's happening at the same venue for other matches. Iran versus New Zealand. Iran, a nation whose participation at this tournament has been surrounded by political uncertainty, and New Zealand, a team competing at the edges of the world stage, has sold more tickets at SoFi Stadium than the host nation's opening game. Think about that for a moment. The country hosting the tournament, playing their first match of the competition, in the most glamorous modern stadium in American sport, and the match involving Iran can sell more seats there than the Americans can shift for their own opener. How did this happen? The answer is one word: pricing. When FIFA put tickets on sale for the USA versus Paraguay match, they made it the third most expensive game of the entire tournament, behind only the final and one semifinal. Category 1 seats were priced at $2,730, Category 2 at nearly $2,000, Category 3 at over $1,000. For a group stage match against Paraguay, ranked outside the top 20, with no history of bringing large traveling fan bases to tournaments. FIFA treated the USA opening match like it was already a classic, like demand would be so overwhelming that $2,730 would feel like a bargain. And the market responded with a clear answer: no. Thousands of tickets are still available through FIFA's official platform. Some resale listings are already going below face value. In World Cup terms, where resale prices almost always rise as tournaments approach, that is a serious red flag. Compare that to Mexico. Match tickets for games in Mexico and Canada are significantly cheaper than comparable fixtures in the United States. The gap is noticeable, and international fans, many of whom have already faced enough friction trying to navigate the American entry process, are looking at those price differences and making a simple calculation: more football, less money, less hassle. Canada and Mexico are winning that argument every single day. The atmosphere question matters enormously here, because a World Cup is not just about what happens on the pitch. It's about the experience that surrounds it. The colors in the stands, the noise when a goal goes in, the flags, the chants, the streets full of supporters from 20 different countries who've all converged on the same city for the same reason. That is what makes a World Cup feel like a World Cup. And right now, the early signs suggest that Canada and Mexico are going to generate that feeling more naturally, more immediately, and more powerfully than the United States. Mexico brings decades of football passion that's embedded in the national identity. Canada brings the energy of a football nation discovering itself at exactly the right moment. The United States brings the biggest stadiums and the most matches, but a football culture that is still developing its emotional core, combined with ticket prices that have pushed away the very fans who would have brought the noise. There's an irony buried in all of this that nobody wants to say directly. The United States fought for 78 matches because more matches meant more power, more revenue, more influence over the tournament's story. But what they may have actually bought is 78 opportunities to be compared unfavorably to their co-hosts. Every group states match that falls short of a sellout, every quiet atmosphere in a half-empty upper tier, every piece of footage showing a sparse crowd at an American venue, placed alongside scenes of the Azteca roaring to life on the tournament's opening night. That comparison is going to do real damage to the narrative America was hoping to build. The United States still has something that Mexico and Canada will never experience at this tournament. They have the final. July 19th, New York, New Jersey Stadium. The last two teams left standing in front of 82,000 people for the most watched football match in 4 years. Nobody can take that away. And when the semifinals and quarterfinals arrive, the stadiums in Dallas and Atlanta and New York will fill on their own because the final stages of a World Cup fill everywhere. The football does the work. But right now, in the build-up, in the group stage, in the opening fortnight when the tournament's identity is being formed, Canada and Mexico are writing the better story. Mexico is opening the show in the most iconic stadium in the history of the sport. Canada is hosting its first ever Men's World Cup match and making fans feel genuinely welcome. And the United States is scrambling to fill seats for a match it priced like a final and couldn't sell like one. The bid was called United 2026. 7 years later, the three nations are anything but. Tariff wars, immigration tension, and a pricing strategy that favored revenue over atmosphere have fractured exactly the unity the bid was built on. And football, which has no interest in politics or economics, is doing what it always does, finding the passion wherever it lives. Right now, in this World Cup, the passion is living loudest in Mexico City and Toronto. So tell me this, do you think the United States can turn it around once the tournament begins? Or has the atmosphere question already been settled before a single ball is kicked? Is this Canada and Mexico's World Cup now? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know what you think. If you're following every twist of the 2026 World Cup story, subscribe and stay with us all the way to the final in July. This story is still developing, and as always, football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one.